So, this video, Doug Walker's Nostalgia Critic 10th Anniversary Special. How can one possibly describe how horrendously awful it is? But I'm guessing not too many people would even want to, considering how anyone who dares say anything bad about Doug Walker these days is immediately attacked by his annoying fans. Now, keep in mind that I just made an update video about how I've got a lot to do in the coming months, and I'm gonna be really busy with future videos, so I'm gonna try to keep this brief. I should probably start by saying that I do not like Doug Walker. He is not a good reviewer. The vast majority of his content is based around comedy, and his brand of humor really isn't that creative or unique. It's quite repetitive, and looking back at his early work, it certainly didn't age very well. Even putting that aside, he's a horrible film analyzer. In all of his reviews I've seen, he's come across as uninformed, unfocused, hypocritical, or some combination of the three. And it's really gotten worse with each passing year. But enough about that. This is going to focus on his review on Norm of the North, which he dedicated his 10-year anniversary to. The first thing that I want to say is that it just feels like a missed opportunity. I mean, I understand wanting to do a review of Norm of the North, but why make it the focus of your 10-year anniversary? There's nothing really special about it. In fact, why didn't he review the original Transformers movie? It was the first video that he ever made, so it would have had some kind of poetic feel to it. Not to mention that he just predicted Transformers 5 flawlessly. There's a lot of potential behind this. He could have made a review about the good old days of seeing Transformers for the first time, comparing it to later day Transformers, talking about the passage of time, how 10 years of doing this has had an effect on him. Reliving his nostalgia, which you think he would do considering his name is Nostalgia Critic. But nope, we don't get any of this. Instead, we just get a lazily put together quote-unquote analysis on Norm of the North that even the mysterious Mr. Enter did a better job at. The first problem with this episode of the Nostalgia Critic is the sense of humor. These aren't the worst jokes that he's made by any means, but they're still not good. The jokes in this episode are just not funny on any level. They come across as stale and badly timed, and it doesn't feel like Doug is putting enough energy into them. And that's putting aside the fact that they just feel incredibly lazy. All of the jokes feel like they were thought up in a couple of seconds and Doug just pasted them into the script without putting more thinking into them. How they could be more effective, more funny, how they could better fit into the review without breaking up the flow of the pacing. Even if Doug is somehow trying harder than he actually is, the jokes are just too predictable. It's easy to tell which brands of humor and what jokes he's going for, even as someone who has loosely seen footage of this movie. This makes the punchlines feel like white noise, and a lot of the other jokes are just something that he says randomly, and he thinks that saying it in a shrill, screeching voice while putting on a dumb face will somehow make it funny, which it does not. Another problem with the episode is the sketches, where instead of cutting away for a few seconds to make a joke revolving around the movie, he completely derails the entire video by dedicating entire minutes to his personal comedic writing. I can understand the opening where he pretends to be Aang, even though it's clearly not funny, but it does serve as a means to set up the review. But the other sketches in this video are horrendous. At one point he starts calling out Bill, and then it just drags on and on and on about how he seems to have disappeared. And the punchline is that Bill just shows up, and they do a stupid dance. What really bothers me about this sketch is that it literally comes out of nowhere and it has no connection with the rest of the video at all, or even the review of the movie itself. It's only there because Doug thought it would be funny, and that's not good for a movie review of any kind. The jokes have to be built around the movie itself, not your shitty demo reel throwaway gags. And the second sketch that he does is that of the Talent Replacer 9000. It may be related to the film review, but considering how badly paced and how irrelevant it feels, I'm just gonna label it as another one of his failed sketches. They don't even say anything funny, they just say exactly what you think they're going to say, which again ruins the punchline that they're going for. And they seem to think that quoting South Park gives the joke more credibility when it really doesn't. This problem is unfortunately not exclusive to this episode. After Doug brought back the Nostalgia Critic, we've been getting more and more jokes like this, where Doug detracts from the review to ham-fist his personal shitty comedic writing into his audience's face, where he spends too much time making sketches and cutaways and losing focus on the review. It always ends up being poorly paced, and it just feels like Doug is coming up with excuses to make the video longer than it should be. The result is that they end up overstaying their welcome, and they become annoying and boring. What's especially horrible is how some of these jokes he's going for make absolutely no sense, and he ends up shooting himself in the foot. Take this for example.
Yeah, he wasn't asked, they weren't talking about it, he just kind of randomly starts doing it. It just comes right the hell out of nowhere, and suddenly, we're in a musical. It's like if in the middle of this review, I suddenly started dancing. Do the Bill dance!
And several minutes after that...
It's like Groundhog Day, except instead of watching Bill Murray, we're watching Rob Schneider! Instead of watching Bill Murray, we're watching Rob Schneider! No! It's like if in the middle of this review, I suddenly started dancing.
If this is Doug's way of adding irony into his jokes, he's not good at it. It only further proves how poorly paced the video is. And this episode is not just poorly paced, it's really, really badly paced. Something that I noticed the second time watching this is how very little Doug actually analyzes the plot of the movie itself. And that mostly stems from how he's just stuck in the first 25 minutes of the movie. I mean, nearly halfway through this video, he's still in the first act of the film. And considering that the last 4 minutes is dedicated to recap and a charity shoutout, it's basically telling me that he spends the majority of the review making jokes about one portion of the film, which gives him very little time left. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even analyze the first act that he spends all of his time on. He honestly had to make a pointless Bill sketch and fill the first 14 minutes telling ineffective jokes. How can he even call this a review if he doesn't even review the movie? He doesn't analyze the flaws in the story or what makes the characters so horrible on any informative level. Other reviews of this movie that I've seen from other YouTubers, Black Critic Guy, Cell Specs, Chris Stuckman, Electric Dragon 505, Cinematic Excrement Smeghead, all of them managed to properly analyze the plot, the characters, and the story when Doug himself couldn't, and they did it with less time. How do you even fuck that up? I know that your main focus is to tell jokes, but you're still a reviewer, and as such, you can't just throw your analysis on the film out like that completely. And it's really, really, really cringy the way that Doug just focuses on the pissing lemmings. In fact, he focuses on them more than the film itself. He says that the scene is only 30 seconds long, and he plays it on loop for over a minute. For God's sake, the audio even plays during the transition to the commercial card, and it continues to play when we come back from the commercial. If he really thinks that no one would want to listen to this, why is he forcing us to listen to it? It's just a disgusting sound, and he doesn't do anything or add anything to make it funny or endearing. He just shows us the scene and lets it sit there like an old man waiting to get his flu shot. And he does this again almost immediately after, only this time he holds onto that stupid face while making us listen to the pissing audio. And let me tell you, that image and that sound should never be experienced together by any mortal man. And then he has to repeat this joke during the part where the lemmings flatulate. Granted that he doesn't really focus too much on this one, but it's still a rendition of a joke that wasn't funny the first time, and this is his third time doing it. Restating your jokes like this kills the flow of your video. But all of that just leads up to the worst thing about this 10-year anniversary special. It feels nothing at all like a 10th anniversary special. There's no scene where Doug reflects on his life since becoming Nostalgia Critic, no reference to his earlier days of the show. They just briefly stick the words 10 years on the title sequence, and that's it. You know what? This was just sad. Not only was this episode of Nostalgia Critic void of humor and a horribly paced review, not to mention that he barely reviews the movie on any level, but it doesn't even succeed as an anniversary special. There's nothing special about it in any way. It's just like every other modern episode of Nostalgia Critic, and they briefly plastered 10-year anniversary on it. Everything about this video is a missed opportunity because Doug wanted to be lazy and just make more crappy jokes. Even for a show that got so bad over the years, I thought there would be at least something put into it to make this feel different from other episodes. But Doug just couldn't pull it off. He really doesn't give a shit anymore, does he? 10 years of the Nostalgia Critic, and this was seriously the best that he could come up with. I can't even call this pathetic, it's just sad and desperate. For what it's worth, I do feel bad for Tamara and Malcolm. Knowing that they have to work with Doug Walker's repetitive shtick must be really tiring on them. Even in this episode, they look and act like they're just completely tired of his shit. In all of their appearances, they really do look like they're trying their best to entertain the audience, but the material that Doug provides for them just gives them very little to work with. Whatever Nicole is doing right now, I'm pretty sure that she's doing a lot better than Doug, which is good for her because in my case, she really dodged a bullet when she left the show. This is seriously one of the worst episodes of The Nostalgia Critic by far, and I mean that on an objective level. It's badly paced, the humor is ineffective, it doesn't properly break down the film it's focusing on, and for a 10-year anniversary, it feels nothing at all like a special anniversary episode. And yet Doug Walker's fans are just eating it up and praising it regardless. It's probably just me, but these days they'll praise just about any mundane thing that Doug Walker does for no other reason than just he's Doug Walker and he can do no wrong. Honestly, at this point Doug's fans could watch him taking a dump and they'll still applaud it. Oh wait, that already happened. Never mind.